Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on subject and predicate. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 8. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of subject and predicate. So in our previous lesson, we did subject and predicate. So we're just going to continue on the same subject, right? And once again, our chapter is subject and predicate. Our chapter is subject and predicate. Our subject is English language art. Grade 8. And the lessons that we are focusing on under the chapter of subject and predicate is to identify simple subject or simple predicates of a subject, and to identify the compound subject or compound predicate of a sentence. All right. So when it comes to subject and predicate, right, every sentence has a subject and it has a predicate. The simple subject, right, it tells us who or what is doing something. So a simple subject, it tells us who or what is doing something, right? And it is just a subject noun or pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies it. So once again, every sentence has a subject as well as a predicate, right? And a simple subject, it tells us either who or it tells us what is doing something. And it is basically just the subject noun or it is the pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies it, right? For example, Jennifer sleeps late on weekends. So Jennifer sleeps late on weekends, right? Then we also have her best friend sleeps late on weekends. And then we have Miss Peterson sleeps late on weekends. And if we look at our subject, right, or if we identify our subject, it says the simple subject, it tells us who or what is doing something, and it is just the subject noun, or it's just the pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies it. So which means that our simple subject will then tell us who sleeps late on a weekend. So which means that it is Jennifer who sleeps late on a subject on a weekend. The friend sleeps late on a weekend, or best friend, or Miss Peterson sleeps late on a weekend. So that is basically simple subjects. Then we have a simple predicate. And a simple predicate, it tells us what the subject is doing. So it's basically like the verb. It tells us what the subject is doing. And it is just the verb without any other words that describes or modifies it. For example, her best friend sleeps. Or we say her best friend sleeps late on a weekend or on the weekends. So which means that our simple predicate, right, it tells us what her best friend does. So which means that our verb will just be, or our predicate will just be sleeps, right? So that is a simple subject as well as a simple predicate. Simple subjects, it tells us who or what is doing something, and it is only the subject noun or only the pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies it. And then we have the simple predicate, right, that tells us what the subject is doing. And it is just the verb without any other words that describes or modifies it. Right? Those are our simple subjects as well as our simple predicate. And we say that in every sentence, we have a subject and we have a predicate. We have a subject that tells us what or who is doing something, and within a sentence, also what the subject is doing. So, who is doing it and what is the subject doing? Or what is doing it and what they are doing, right? And in each sentence, it has a complete subject, right? We said that, as well as a complete predicate. And when the complete subject is compound, so we have simple subject, simple predicate, but now they say when the complete subject, right, when it is compound, then it means two or more simple subjects are joined by a conjunction and they share the same predicate, right? So one simple subject is like where they tell us, for example, who or what is doing something, as well as the action, right? But now when it comes to a complete subject, right, that is compound, that means it is two or more simple subjects that is joined by a conjunction and it shares the same predicate. And our most common conjunctions are words like and, but, or so. For example, Robert and his classmates will be attending a ballet performance. So, Robert and his classmates will be attending a ballet performance, right? So, the subject that it is basically joining, right, is Robert and his classmates. And here the word and is our conjunction. And this word this word and, it joins the two simple subjects. And our simple subjects is Robert and it is his classmate, right? So that is a complete subject that is compound. It's the same like saying it's a compound sentence where we have two simple sentences that is joined by a conjunction. So they say here we have the complete subject that is compound, that is joined by two simple subjects, which is two simple subjects that are joined by a conjunction and they share the same predicate. And remember, we said our simple subjects, it is either a noun or it can be a pronoun, right? It tells us who or what is doing the action. So it is Robert and his classmate. So basically, when you look at Robert and his classmate, each simple subject, right, which is Robert and his classmate, within that compound subject, it tells us who will be attending a ballet performance, which is Robert and it is his classmates. Those are the two subjects that tells us who will be attending the ballet performance. It is Robert and his classmates. And then when the complete predicate is compound, so when the complete predicate is compound, then it means it is two or more simple predicates that are joined by a conjunction and they share the same subject. So we have two or more simple predicates and they are joined by a conjunction, but they share the same subject, right? They share the same subject. One subject, but two verbs. So one subject, two verbs. For example, Sarah woke up late, but still arrived at work on time. So Sarah woke up late, right? But she still arrived at work on time. So that is basically our two predicates, and they share the same subject, right? It tells us what Sarah did. Sarah woke up late, and the other thing that shows us what she did, she arrived at work on time. So that is basically our compound subject as well as a compound predicate, right? And we said we have a complete subject that is compound, and that means that it's two or more simple subjects that is joined by conjunction and they share the same predicate, one predicate. Two subjects, one predicate. All right, so it's either two nouns, two pronouns, but one verb. And it's joined by conjunction. And then we have also when we have a complete predicate, right, that is compound, then it means that we have two or more simple predicates that are joined by conjunction, but they share the same subject, which means that we will have two different actions within that one sentence, but one subject. Two verbs, one subject, right? And it is joined by a conjunction. And we see the conjunction, the most common conjunctions are words like and, but, or so. And in this case, let's say the case of the complete subject, right? Our conjunction is and, there we wrote it. And when it comes to the predicate, right? The conjunction that joined these two predicates is but. So but is our conjunction. Right? So that is our simple subjects as well as our compound subject, as well as a simple predicate, as well as our compound predicate. And we are doing a tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca, right? So now let's go to aplusstudents.ca and we're going to do our 2 lessons as well as our test. So we're going to the first lesson, which is to identify the simple subject or the simple predicate of a sentence. And we see the simple subject, it tells us who or what is doing something. And it is just the subject, noun, or pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies it. And then we also have the simple predicate, which tells us what the subject is doing. And it is just the verb without any other words that describe or modify it. Right? So now, if we look at this sentence over here, we need to select the simple subject. Remember, we said a simple subject is only who or what is doing something, only the subject, noun, or pronoun without any other words to describe or modify it. It says a monstrous storm was brewing in the Gulf. A monstrous storm was brewing in the Gulf. So a monstrous storm was brewing in the Gulf. If we identify our simple or select the simple subject, what would be our simple subject within that sentence? A monstrous storm was brewing in the Gulf. We need to select our simple subject. Who or what is doing something? All right, so if we select our simple subject, right, and then we will say it is storm, right? So what was brewing in the Gulf? It was storm. And remember, we said when it comes to a simple subject, right, then it is just the subject noun or it is just the pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies it. So we're not going to say the monstrous storm. We're just going to say storm, right? Because that was brewing in the Gulf. So a simple subject is storm, right? We need to select the simple subject. I limit my time watching television each day. I limit my time watching television each day. We need to select the simple subject within that sentence. Who or what is doing something? I limit my time watching television each day. All right, so if we select our simple subject, which is either our noun or our pronoun, then we can say it is I, right? This I. So I limit my time watching television each day. I is the subject who watches television, who limits their time watching television each day. All right, and if we select our simple subject, once again, it says the narrator speaks in a low voice. So the narrator speaks in a low voice. We need to select the simple subject. Remember, it's only the noun or only the pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies that noun. All right, and if we select our simple subject, right, and then we will select our simple subject as narrator, not the narrator, just narrator, because it is the noun or just the pronoun. So basically just a noun without any other words that describes or modifies the noun. So the narrator, what does the narrator do? The narrator speaks in a low voice. So narrator is our subject, our simple subject. All right, so now we're going to our test. We are now going to identify the simple subjects or the simple predicate within the sentence, right? So we're going to follow the sentences based on what is being asked, and then we will identify it, which will either be simple sentences or the simple predicate, right? And please, you can please give answers, please, or let's at least try. All right, so we're now going to select the simple subject. We're going to select the simple subject within these sentences. If we look at the sentence, it says her favorite pastime surprises most people. So her favorite pastime surprises most people. So what is our simple subject within that sentence? Is it pastime or is it people? Pastime or people? Her favorite pastime surprises most people. We need to select the simple subject. What do you think is our subject? All right, so if we choose our favorite pastime, um, our favorite pastime surprises most people, then we'll say people. Ooh, pastime. Surprised. So pastime, sorry, is actually our simple subject, not people. People is a noun, but it is not the noun within that sentence. All right. We now need to select the simple predicate, right? We're going to select the simple predicate within the sentence. It says, he circled his favorite line of the poem. He circled his favorite line of the poem. Is it circled or is it poem? The predicate, the verb, circled or poem? we need to select our predicate. And if we select our simple predicate, right, the action, it is circled. Right, so circled is our correct predicate or simple predicate. Now it says we need to select the simple subject, right? The simple subject within that sentence. Her best friend moved away last summer. So her best friend moved away last summer. So her best friend moved away last summer. Is it summer or is our simple subject friend? So is it summer or friend? All right, and if we select the correct one, we will say it is friend, not best friend, just friend. So friend. Remember, we're only choosing either the noun or pronoun without any other words that describes or modifies our word or our subject. All right, we need to select the simple subject. It says golden honey oozed from the overturned bottle. Golden honey oozed from the overturned bottle. We need to select the simple subject. Who or what did the action? So is it honey or bottle? Honey or bottle? So it is golden honey oozed from the overturned bottle. All right, and if we choose or we select the simple subject, all right, then we can say honey, not golden honey, just honey, right? Let's do the last one. We need to select the simple subject, the simple subject. It says, Rick pruned the rose bushes in Mrs. Garrison's garden. So Rick pruned the rose bushes in Mrs. Garrison's garden. So if we select our simple subject, is it Rick or is it garden? Rick or garden? All right, and if we select our simple subject, then we will say it is Rick. All right. So that was us identifying the simple subject and simple predicate within the sentence. Now we're going to identify the compound subject or compound predicate of the sentence, right? And we said when it comes to compound subject and compound predicate, right? Then when we have a complete subject that is compound, then it means that we have either two or more simple subjects that are joined by a conjunction and they share the same predicate. And we said a conjunction, our let's say our most common conjunctions are words like and, but, or so. So which means that we will have two subjects but one verb. That is a, let's say, a compound subject. Then we have a compound predicate, right? And when a complete predicate is compound, then it means that it will have two or more simple predicates that are joined by a conjunction and they say share the same subject. So it will have one subject but two verbs, two predicates, right? And once again, it is joined by a conjunction which is and, but, or so. All right, so let's first look at a few activities and then we're going to the test. It says we need to select 5 words that make up the compound subject. 5 words that make up the compound subject. It says paper lanterns and stringed lights make excellent party decorations. So it's paper lanterns and stringed lights make excellent party decorations. So we need to select the 5 words that make up the compound subject. All right, so if we select our 5 words that make up the compound subject, then it is our subject is paper lanterns and stringed lights, right? Which means that our word and is the conjunction that is joining that two subjects, which is paper lanterns and it's joining stringed lights. That is our 5 words that make up our compound subject. Now, it says select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. The 7 words that make up the compound predicate. So, Mr. Baker promoted me and gave me a raise. So, Mr. Baker promoted me and gave me a raise. So we need to select the 7 words that make the compound predicate. So when it comes to the compound predicate, based on what I just saw now, it is not just the actual verb, right? But it looks like it's more, let's say, so it started by the first word, which is promoted. So promoted me and gave me a raise. So that is the 2 words. So first promoted, then gave me a raise. So that is the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So we don't just say promoted, or we don't just say gave, but we need to take that whole phrase, right? All right, let's do the last activity, then we go to our test. It says we need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. The 7 words that make up the compound predicate. The relay race lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. So the relay race lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. So we need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. All right, so if we select our compound predicate, right, then it will be lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. And there we have the word and, which is our conjunction that joins those 2 compound predicates, right? All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to select our compound subjects as well as compound predicates. We're going to identify it. It says we need to select the 4 words that make up the compound subject. What are the 4 words that make up the compound subject? It says dandelions and mustard grass grow abundantly around here in the spring. So dandelions and mustard grass, they grow abundantly around here in the spring. We need to select the 4 words that make up the compound subjects. Is it dandelions and mustard grass? Or is it here in the spring? We need to select the correct compound subject. All right, then if we select our compound subject, right, then we will say it's dandelions and mustard grass. That is our 4 words that make up our compound subject. We need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. So the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. It says Paula searched the attic but couldn't find anything. So Paula searched the attic but couldn't find anything. So we need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. 7 words. Is it searched the attic but couldn't find anything? Or is it Paula searched the attic but couldn't find? We need to select 7 words that make up the compound predicate. All right, then if we select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate, right, then we will say search the attic but couldn't find anything. So the word that was used to join these two, let's say these two compound sentences or predicates, right, it is the word, the conjunction but. So but join those compound predicates. Select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. Compound predicate. We need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. It says, the relay race lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. So the relay race lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. We now need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. So the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. Is it lasted an hour and challenged our stamina? Or the relay race lasted an hour and challenged? So we need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. All right, and if we select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate, then we will say it is lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. Lasted an hour and challenged our stamina. All right, let's do the last one. We need to select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate. The 7 words that make up the compound predicate. It says, Mr. Baker promoted me and gave me a raise. So Mr. Baker promoted me and gave me a raise. We need to select the 7 words that makes up the compound predicate. Is it promoted me and gave me a raise? Or is it Mr. Baker promoted me and gave me? And when we select the 7 words that make up the compound predicate, we can say promoted me and gave me a raise. And we have the word and, or they say the conjunction and that joins those predicates, which is promoted and gave. But instead of just saying promoted and gave, it is promoted me and gave me a raise. So that is our 7 words that make up a compound predicate. All right, so we did subject and predicates, and we had to identify simple subjects as well as simple predicates, right? And then we also had to identify the compound subjects and compound predicates. Simple subject, it just tells us who or what is doing the action without any other added words that either describes or modifies that subject. And then our simple predicate, it tells us the action that is being done, right? Without any other added words to describe or modify that predicate. Then we have a compound subject, right, which is joined by 2 simple subjects, right? And we then use a conjunction to join that, let's say the 2 subjects. And our common conjunctions are either and, but, or so. And when it comes to a compound subject, it will, for example, have two or more subjects, but it will have that shares the same predicate. And then we have the compound predicate, right? That has one subject, but it has, for example, two or more predicates. So then we have two or more predicates that will share that one specific subject. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on subject and predicate. Thank you very much for joining our class. I really hope that you do have a more broader understanding of what subject and predicate is. So, till next time, have a good evening further. Goodbye.